So guys, I said in the previous video that I was going to be doing deck reviews. This is actually being filmed straight after the last video. Sorry, just on the camera. There we go. Yeah, this is being filmed straight after, and this deck review in Yugioh the Forbidden One deck. So, starting it off simply, we've got the 5 main pieces of Yugioh. Oh, and I forgot to mention, this deck review will be, the cards that come out are in order of how much you want to see them, like how frequently you want to see them. So, you've got the 5 pieces of Yugioh, and this is a mixed rarity deck. So you've got the 5 pieces there, and then you run 3 copies of Royal Magical Library, nice and simply. This will allow you to activate spell cards, place a spell counter on them, and draw a card for, well, remove 3 and draw a card, which comes in pretty handy and is a card that will help these, that we'll go over later in the video. So that's them. You then also run 1 copy of Sangan, which is a very nice card. This one allows you, will it focus? No? Okay. So this one will, when it's sent from field to grave, add a monster with 1500 or less attack from your deck to hand, which is every card we've gone over so far, and in fact every card in this deck, bar 2. So yeah, that's a nice little searcher. And then we've got 2 copies of the Witch of the Black Forest. She is for the exact same reason as Sangan, only she's 1500 or less defense, which again, every card in this deck, except for Royal Magical Library and 1 other, which we'll be going over next, is viable to search from this. So it's like allowing you to search your pieces, some other cards that are in the deck. So yeah, that's them. And then we run 2 copies of Blue Eyes 2 Dragon. This is the card. This card cannot be searched by Sangan or Witch of the Black Forest, but it is nice when paired with a spell card, which again we'll go over in a minute. And then we run 1 copy of Exodus, the Ultimate Forbidden Lord. He's nice, special summoning by searching, well no, by sending all monsters that are in your graveyard back to the deck. So that's him. And then we've got Legendary Yugioh Incarnate. He's nice because he will add a piece of your, any piece of Yugioh from your graveyard to your hand at the end of the turn, which they can be sent there by him. If he declares an attack, he sends 1 normal monster, well no, 1 monster from deck to grave, and he gains 1000 for each normal monster in grave, and he gains 1000 for each Forbidden One or Yugioh card, is it? Yeah, for each Forbidden One card in your grave, he gains 1000 for it, and then at the end of the turn he adds a piece back. But he can only be summoned by normal summoning a piece of Yugioh and then tributing that piece to special summon him, and if he is destroyed, you can reveal any number of Yugioh pieces in your hand and draw for that many pieces, which is nice. So next is 2 copies of Karkadi. Pretty basic, normal summoning. I'll normal summon it. Sorry. Normal summon it, tribute it in your main in the same main phase that you summoned it. Draw 2 cards, and it becomes your end phase, which again is nice when paired with this because you summon it and then you draw 2 and get a piece engraved to hand, which is nice. And then just in case, we've got a copy of Swift Scarecrow, which, if you don't know what this does, it's when your opponent declares a direct attack, you'd send it from hand to your grave and then negate the attack and end the battle phase, which, nice, so to stop you taking any damage. We then have Skellingle, which you set it face down, and if it's flipped face up, you draw a card. Simple as that. Now, people say it's Skellingle, Skellangel, Skellangle. That is to me. Leave comments saying how you would say it. And then last monster of the deck we have Morphinjar. Again, another flip monster. When it's flipped face up, each player discards as many cards as possible from their hands, and then each player draws 5 cards. So that's nice. So that's the monsters of the deck. Next we'll be moving on to the spell cards. Again, these are ranked most valuable, like most valued in the deck, to least valued. So we have 1 copy, Magical Citadel of Endymion. I'm not currently running away to search this because I have so many draw cards, I don't need it. But each time a spell card is activated, you place a counter on it when it resolves. If one of the Royal Magical Libraries is destroyed, you place that many the amount of spell counters that had on it onto this card. And if you would activate a card by removing spell counters from your field, remove them from here instead. And instead of this being destroyed, you can remove a spell counter to save it, which is nice. Next up we have 3 copies of Toon Table of Contents, which you literally play 1 copy to search the other, to search the other, to search your Blue-Eyes Tomb Dragon. And that's an instant 3 counters on your Royal Magicals and your Magical Citadels. So, yeah, pretty basic, but worthy. Then we have 2 copies of Magical Mallet. Shuffle your entire hand, well, any number of cards from your hand. I tend to do my entire hand, but shuffle any number of cards from your hand to your deck and then draw the same number of cards you added. So it's a nice little bit of like recycle basically. Yeah, it's nice. And then we have Reload, which is basically the same thing as Royal Magical Mallet, sorry, except you send your entire hand to the deck and draw the same number. So that's nice. And then we have 2 copies of Wonder Wand. So if you control a spellcaster type monster, equip this card to it, and then if you control both well no, it's equip only to a spellcaster, but if you control the spellcaster, you can send both to the graveyard and draw 2 cards. And if you couple that with the effect of Witch of the Black Forest, you're getting 2 draws and a search from Witch of the Black Forest, which I think is pretty nice. And then we have 2 copies of Trading, which allow you to basically discard a level 8 monster, which is your Blue-Eyes Tomb Dragon, and draw 2 cards, which is nice. And then we have 1 Tomb World, because A, it's a spell card, and B, it's a nice card to search if you've used your Blue-Eyes Tomb Dragons already. So yeah, that's nice. But you do have to pay 1,000 life points to activate it. Then we have 1 copy of Book of Moon, because spell counter, and you can flip an opponent's monster face down during their turn, which is nice. Then we have 1 copy of Infinite Cards, because 6 cards is never enough, and when you're playing Yugioh you want as many cards in your hand as possible. And then we have the last of the spell cards, which is Monster Reborn, which obviously only playable at 1, but it's in there for obvious reasons because it special summons one monster from the graveyard, which could be a Royal Magical Library. So yeah, that's nice. And next up we have the trap cards, which there aren't many of. So we run, that shouldn't be with them yet. We run 2 copies of Jar of Greed because draw power. You literally, the card description, don't know if you can see that properly, but just draw 1 card. So it's nice to have in there. Then we have 3 copies of Reckless Greed, which, if you don't know what it does, it's a draw 2, but you don't draw for the next 2 standby for the next 2 draw phases of your turns. But you can go into the deck at any time to search cards, which is nice, and you can still draw cards as long as it's not during your draw phase. So that's a nice card. And then, sorry, we have the last card in the deck, which is Obliterate, with 3 exclamation marks. So this is a bit of a complicated one, but I'll go over it as best I can in the simplest terms I can, in case there's any of you new duelists out there checking out this channel. So you target 1 monster on the field, which is the cost to target 1, and then you send 1 Forbidden 1 monster or Exodia card from your hand or deck to the graveyard, and if you do, return the target from the start of the card to your hand. If this card is sent from the spell or trap zone to the graveyard, you target 1 Forbidden 1 monster or Exodia card in your graveyard and add it to your hand, but you can only use 1 effect per turn. So what I like to do with this is target the Legendary Exodia Incarnate, who is unaffected by other cards' effects. I forgot to mention that in his review, part of the review. So you can target him, send a piece of Exodia to the grave, and because he is unaffected, he stays on field. And then during the end phase you get that piece back, which is always nice. And yeah, that pretty much wraps up this review. Yeah, that pretty much wraps it up. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a like, subscribe, and I'll see you for more videos.